We'll start off with the crypto. Going live. Going live. Going live. We'll start off with the crypto. Literally, Hexicans, I have nothing. I got a Hexican fade, that's about it. You know? Courtesy of some Amazon clippers. Now, when we look at crypto, right? It's everywhere. It's in the headline. We could all go chasing the rabbit down the hole and trying to figure out what's the next thing that's going to pop. Historically, when things like this occur, like the 2008 financial crisis, it wasn't until about 2012 where they began to write about it in financial textbooks, accounting type textbooks, you know. And they were able to look at it proactively, like looking back at it, and basically was able to piece together what took place. So this is pretty much a similar situation, I think, that is going to occur with the whole FTX, the whole crypto space currently as it is now. Because it's not going to be until we figure out what actually happened that we can begin to even analyze how we can fix it, how it could have been fixed. Now, this is non-Hexicans that would be doing this analysis, I would imagine, because the majority of, you know, Hexicans, I would imagine, that have been following since day one, many, I think, even before day one, will basically understand very basic concepts of cryptocurrency, which I'm noticing a lot of politicians don't understand, a lot of financial analysts don't understand, a lot of economists don't understand. They see this exchange collapse and automatically tie it incorrectly to crypto in general. They don't understand holding custody of your own coins. They don't understand when they gave assets away to other people, then they no longer held those assets. It's very frustrating to see. And people everywhere are going around chasing to figure out what's going on. But the same thing happened with the whole COVID-19 virus thing. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, as it was taking place, the very early stages of it, it was a slow motion disaster being unfolded right in front of our eyes, like a car accident that they need to go back and figure out what actually happened. You know, those shows, and they try and, you know, piece together what took place, why it took place, how it took place. So the ongoing effects of that particular virus, I am pretty sure we are still seeing. We see the economy has changed forever. We see the supply shutdowns. We even see the effects on, I guess, the uptick in online communication, for example, working from home and things like that. But again, that's not my area of expertise. This is going to be the same thing with this particular FTX collapse and the contagion, as they keep calling it, and everything else that's connected to it. Because I saw more recently an article, basically someone had lost reportedly $14,000 and they were upset because they put it into an exchange and they couldn't get it out. Again, they show these news articles, but they don't say, oh, but by the way, because we put it in the exchange, and they don't explain if they just had have held it themselves. It's so frustrating to see. I honestly think after about 4 years' time, once this is all passed, and they're writing about it in textbooks, it's going to be as if the Hexicans are explaining to them, did you know, not your keys, not your coins, did you know these people should have held their cryptocurrencies in their own wallets? And what's a cold wallet, you know, what's a hardware wallet? It's so frustrating to see. But I thought, changing topics just slightly. That's why I call this the Chinese hexicans, right? We can see the cryptocurrency market is red, it's down, whatever. Hex is also down, so maybe you look into t-shirts and how they function. I'm pretty sure there was a tweet not that long ago, and the not diminishing value, but I think it was the t-shares that were actually evaporating. It was a pretty damn interesting graph. I was like, okay, there appears to be a trend taking place there. So what does that mean for t-shirt holders? And you could probably do some calculations and see where that's all headed. But then you'll be like, look at the price. The price is shit. Yeah, well, look at the rest of the cryptocurrency space. The rest of the cryptocurrency space is shit because of this contagion, because of this scandal. And they quote here, loss of confidence in exchanges. Where is it? The emergence of exchanges was a major factor in fueling cryptocurrency's price growth. And anyway, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this section. The epic collapse of the crypto empire looks to go down as one of the greatest financial debacles of all time so far. Reminds you of that meme. This is the worst day of your life so far. With a storyline full of celebrities, politicians, sex, and drugs, the future looks bright for producers of feature films and documentaries. But to paraphrase Mark Twain, rumors of the death of crypto itself have been much exaggerated. Again, if you had have held your crypto not on an exchange, what do you think would have happened? Not to touch the CBDCs, not to touch the IP tracing, not to touch the regulation, not to touch the entire narrative now that crypto bad. But it's going to be interesting, like I said, after this is all, the dust is settled, and people realize, you know, proper crypto, real crypto, is continuing on, will carry on, and people that hold their own keys and hold their own coins will be unaffected in the sense of they won't lose all of their assets because they won't give it away, you know? Now back to this. Now this is pretty damn interesting. How would I word it? If these protesters were to be anyone I can think of, other than InfoWarriors, they would probably be Hexicans, because I think they might politically align with, well, generally speaking here, but they would probably align with the values of, you know, they don't like being locked down, they don't like having their freedoms taken away, they don't like, just some things that I also align with. But the protest is probably worth watching. I was going to cover the Ukraine and Europe geopolitics and how that war's going and how it's boomeranging back on Europe and the price of energy and how sanctions don't work and a whole lot of things that was pointed out in an email to me, which were as follows. If I can find it. Basically, some dot points on that topic. Sanctions strengthen Russia. Sanctions would weaken Europe. Sanctions would also hurt Americans, but not as much as Europeans. Europe losing their cheapest source of abundant energy was stupid, and Ukraine wasn't worth it for either Europe or America. Now, this was called by some people early on, but again, no one cares. Because for whatever reason, the price of energy doesn't seem to matter for some people, you know, in the middle of a winter. Now, moving though to the Chinese and what is going on over there, let's break down some documentaries, because just in case you were too busy focused on, you know, the crypto sideshow that's going on, the rates that are still probably going to go up for the next 3 consecutive meetings at a minimum. So we're looking into the beginning of 2023. So what's that going to do to the economy with ongoing war, with the the slowdown of the entire economy? We're now seeing, on top of this, unrest in China. Probably because of their zero COVID policy, and probably because of their authoritarian, Orwellian nightmare lockdowns under a communist regime dictatorship. We're seeing protests not seen since Tiananmen Square, apparently. And let's have a look what is going on. And I hope they keep it up. Freedom.
For days, police across China have shown unusual tolerance for protests. Not anymore. One by one, protesters were dragged away in Shanghai as
See, the problem is, these poor bastards are probably going to go out and get taken out, or they're going to be, as I said in another video, they're probably going to have their social credit score ruined, their family's social credit score ruined, all their friends' social credit scores ruined, and life's not going to be too good for them. Unless they can make actual real change in their neck of the woods. Because from Australia, I don't think I can do much to help these poor bastards. I wish I could do more. Maybe if they were to discover real DeFi, maybe they could help themselves. Just maybe, But everyone's too busy was too busy sending cryptocurrency to FTX to support Ukraine, and I don't know where that money went. Anyway, moving on.
others yelled at police to free them. In Beijing, security forces were more hands-off as a few thousand people gathered.
I never thought we'd be able to protest to express our demands.
Demonstrators chanted, "We want freedom and no PCR tests."
Maybe they're sick of it. Maybe they've realized this whole virus over there in this situation was being used, reportedly, to literally stop their movements and track and trace them. That's it. What do you think could happen in a country like Australia, for example? UK, Canada, America, France, Germany? The list goes on and on and on.
A rejection of leader Xi Jinping's endless attempt to eliminate the virus.
They just had
We want
enough.
COVID measures based on science.
I think we should go back to normal. We should go back to our normal lives.
See, this is their normal lives, and they've started to realize that the normal life is no longer. Their normal life is social credit score up the wazoo, lockdowns, testing, and there was a tweet, and it was like someone in a jail cell and food being dropped into this like dog door. That was their life because they gave up. They decided that that was their life and that the government knew best, and they should, just trust their science issued by politicians, issued by the government.
Earlier, large crowds gathered on university campuses, a sight not seen since the Tiananmen Square protests 33 years ago. Demonstrations have spread across at least 15 provinces, including Wuhan.
Now, cryptocurrency is not going to solve this problem. I don't know what's going to solve this problem. I think they need to change the way that they govern, their citizens, and maybe instead of focusing all their technology on hypersonics and hacking the shit out of everything, maybe they could, get their people some more freedom and let them move around again. Because their zero COVID policy is clearly failing, and they can no longer go down the pathway of zero COVID policy, because this is what is taking place. If they continue to do that, then more of this is going to take place. As simple as that. Simple as that.
Wuhan, the city where the global pandemic began. While some protesters called for Xi Jinping and the Communist Party to go, most are focused on ending excessive COVID rules in their communities. This video of Beijing residents stopping officials from taking a 2-year-old in full PPE to a quarantine camp has gone viral across the country. At 40,000...
I wonder how many people, how many deaths there's actually been, and how many people have been put into these quarantine camps. That's like some statistics that might be worth looking at. Maybe that's why these people are getting annoyed and frustrated.
New cases each day, China is not going back to zero, but officially elimination remains the policy. President Xi is staying silent, but he's used state media to say a recent slight easing of restrictions is enough. With anger out.
Without pushback, there will be no freedom. Now, I'm not saying like, I don't know, go out and protest about cryptocurrency or anything like that. What I'm saying is we can see here policies not working, people getting fed up, and not just going along like so many other people did, which they initially did. But now, what, years later, and they're still experiencing this, they're starting to realize this is the new normal. They're starting to realize there's kids being raised in this dystopian nightmare, and this is becoming the new normal. And maybe some of them have gone to use their bank account, and the digital currency doesn't work anymore because someone they knew was protesting and they got flipped to red instead of green, you know, red for not being able to spend.
Out in the open, local authorities are trying to contain it. The street in Shanghai, where some protesters called for Xi Jinping to stand down, now being blocked off, not for the virus, but to stop the spread of dissent.
Yeah, not for the virus anymore. But we've been so well trained though, or they've been so well trained to stay inside and not go outside. Why is that? Because of the scary virus. It's like, hang on. You trained us all to not leave the house and imprison ourselves. And now that you want to imprison us, you can just enact this like process, like at the flick of a switch, because of a pandemic? Genius. So they thought. Because it's not looking good. Here's another one. And there's so many Chinese people, man. There's a lot. Maybe some of them might discover some real DeFi. Who knows? Maybe some of them already have discovered DeFi. I hope they do. I hope they get their freedoms. Because from what I'm seeing, it's a nightmare. Then again, this doesn't look too different to Melbourne, Australia, when the virus was everywhere and the police were like bashing people because they didn't have a face mask on. So it happened all over the world, not just specific to China. So I can't be like, oh, look at those evil Chinese government. It's like, look what Australia did to its own people because they were scared. Now they want an amnesty. And now people are getting fed up in China. One of the most authoritarian countries in the world, I would say. You'd be right up there. Be a contender for number one. Get him. Freedom. See, this is the thing, like, when the issue for the order is given, like, it takes a normal person like you or I to follow that order. What if they just stopped following orders? Like, in relation to locking down entire cities, locking down their own neighbors, their own relatives. Like, I don't know if people think of this. Like, these people walking, man, they got family and friends, relatives. Like, Do they think this is normal? What is happening? I'm trying to break the matrix with me and Tintop. I'm going over how to recruit some Hexicans, some Chinese Hexicans, because they're kicking ass over in China. Apparently. See, they're all too scared. Like, but previously they were all too scared to leave because they're like, oh, my pass doesn't work. I can't go anywhere. I've been told to stay inside. I can't spend any of my money. And then they may be like, hang on, I can just walk out the front door. Like, I remember when we got told here in South Australia, you can't go walking at a certain time. I'm like, I can just go walk the dog if I really want to. It'll look a bit weird because we'll be the only people walking around, but most people did though. And now the government's like, oh shit, they've realized, you know, the Jedi mind trick's not working anymore. Our COVID passes aren't working anymore. And I'm not sure why. Maybe they're realizing the state of their economy is not as good as it is being presented. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. But yeah, now this is just some footage of protests, and I'm surprised the footage is actually getting out. Usually it doesn't escape the Great Firewall of China. This is crazy though. These are not small protests. See, and the way these poor people getting taken. Maybe they're going to the internment camps being built in the name of safety. I hope not. That's just freaky to think of that. Look at this. Busting down barricades. And why were the barricades there? Well, for COVID, or was it for political control? And look at them, they're all filming. It's hard to stop a wave. A different type of red wave, mind you. They had enough, man. Wuhan protesters tear down lockdown barricades. So they built up all this infrastructure and in the name of... Yeah. I keep repeating. I'll let it play. Funny things, they're still wearing the masks though. Go figure. I don't know how far spread it is, but it's a lot. Like a lot. And there's so many people over there. Maybe just maybe they figured out there's so many people on the planet that if all of them at the same time globally awoken and their you know, consciousness realized that something's not right, maybe the people in power might have trouble controlling them all. I don't know if you guys have seen the 100th monkey theory. And basically, there's one monkey, I think it was in Japan or something, and it learned how to clean sweet potatoes from the snow in the lake. And all of a sudden, another one learned how to do it. Another one learned how to do it. And it reached like a threshold, and all of a sudden, the same monkeys on the other side of the island were doing the same shit, and no one showed them how to do it, they just like did it. It's like, almost like consciously, the 100th monkey theory kicked in. What if everyone all of a sudden realized they want more freedom? Like in a country like China. And so you tell one person, they tell another person, they tell another person. Next thing, the network is spreading. Similar to the way that the virus was spreading. At one stage, remember there was graphs being shown? You must not go, you know, 2 meters or 1 point whatever it was near the other person. Because you could spread it to them and they could spread it to 2, and 2 could turn to 4, 4 could turn to 8, and it just keep growing. Imagine if the same concept was taking place, but people were just like waking up. What's the word? They were just waking up. They're like, I'm sick of this tyrannical government. Who knows? Yes. I remember that guy, and I think I made a video and there was a translation, and I was like, what is this translation? So I went in, translated the what was his name? Go back to about a month ago, there's a video. I found a comment of it, and it was in, like I said, it was in I'm not sure what dialect it was in, can't think of the name now. Chinese writing, basically, and I translated. Did he? Maybe he wrote in every language. Maybe. Clever, clever. I remember that though. He was putting like banners everywhere and causing sort of a stir. Maybe it was him. Maybe he was a lone Hexican, you know. Had enough. He got sick of the world and decided to peacefully, politically change it for the better. This one, I'm not sure this one has any video, but yeah, it's just it's sort of being, I'm not sure how far it's being covered. But yeah, with the faith of the mustard seed, you can move mountains, apparently.
Rare protests erupting in Chinese cities and universities, sparked by the country's strict, ongoing COVID lockdowns, are seeing protesters turn to an unusual symbol of defiance.
Yeah, they're taking their communion.
Holding up blank sheets of paper. Why? Because the bits of paper are as much a symbol
Man, they can't
as
even
it's
have
also
churches
a
in
tactic
China,
to avoid
apparently. Not
arrest
pulling out
or
crosses.
running foul of the country's censorship laws.
Imagine that.
Widespread protests like this one at Beijing's prestigious Tsinghua University have been unprecedented under President Xi Jinping, whose government has all but eliminated public displays of dissent.
Except for the banner man.
This woman is shouting, "Stop performing oral sex to public power." In Shanghai, these people are chanting, "Down with the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping."
I agree with these people.
China's social media platforms are heavily censored, forcing citizens into cat and mouse games to get around it. In online chat rooms seen by Reuters, protesters are being advised to bring a sheet of blank paper to a demonstration. But the hashtag white paper exercise has already been blocked on at least one site.
What was that?
In Hong Kong 2 years ago, protesters also used blank paper as a response to the city's ban on certain protest slogans, and the tactic has recently spread to Moscow in protests against the war in Ukraine.
Who would have thought freedom spreads, you know? Like, the best type of existence. The most successful. Like, who would have thought that would spread? Just like, in a similar way, again, coming back to Hex, who would have thought that all these other bullshit exchanges crash and crumble and get caught up in God knows what, and real crypto keeps ticking along. Almost quietly in the background. Almost quietly. They blocked everything on Wemo. I'm guessing they being the Chinese big brother in there, when they're using the internet within the China. Man, I'm surprised I don't just figure out how to like reach out to the outside world, because they need some freedom, man. They're literally protesting for it. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But that is about it. Like I said, I was just scrolling through Drudge Report was like, what's this? China COVID revolution? Biggest protest since Tiananmen, calls for Xi to resign, defiance. And then I saw Twitter flooded with porn. I'm like, is that Elon? Like, just letting that through for lols? This I thought was interesting. Collapse in house prices coming, experts say. Now, South Australia might not be too bad. It might not fare as bad as some of the rest of the world. Supposedly. Collapse in home prices is coming. Yeah, a lot's coming, I think. Supply chain is not getting better. Someone said, what's the cure to supply chain issues? Well, favorable conditions might be recession, might be deep recession, might be depression. Things might never get back to the way they once were, honestly. Yeah. Check the China show live streams. Oh, I have to check that one out. I like this other one. He oh, there's another guy. He goes and covers all ADB China. That actually might be the one. Let's have a look. Man, my computer's like struggling so hard when I stream. Must not look at keys. The China show. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, those guys are good. They cruise around on the there's a few, hey. I like watching their stuff. They just ride around on push bikes, motorbikes, push bikes.
The China show.
Nah, and they just it's really interesting.
The China show,
riding through heaps of different, I guess, territories over there, and they, let's have a look. No, I was just messing. I'm not a fan of motorbikes. That's all. Also, I don't know how to ride them, so. If I had a choice, I'd prefer like a Ram Ute over a motorbike. That's just me.
Welcome everybody to a very special report. We are now talking about what's going on in China at the moment.
Hey, these guys are going hard, eh?
We've seen massive uprisings breaking out throughout China.
Freedom.
Would you like to explain to people a little bit more what's going on?
Absolutely. So
I forgot about these dudes. Am I not subscribed?
Yeah.
It would, like I said, it would make sense if it was just, in the cosmopolitan Shanghai where they have a global view, right?
Yeah.
Where they see everything with a more international lens. But look at this.
Yeah.
We have Xi'an. We have Inner Mongolia.
Shit, it's everywhere.
I'm just going to name these places.
Sure.
We have Lanzhou. We have Chongqing. We have other parts of Guangzhou, which we're already protesting.
Yes.
We have Beijing. We have third tier, fourth tier, fifth tier cities. We have top tier universities down to...
Shit.
What he's saying over here, okay?
I'm just skipping forward a bit.
Against the zero COVID policy, against the government policies. And the police arrived. And in the numbers you saw there's like, I don't know, 30, 40 policemen there for one man. Usually that's it. They'll drag him away and it's done. But the crowd stepped in to support this guy and actually got him out.
Yeah.
And you see something like this shows a big shift. It shows a lot of courage and it shows people are finally, they've had enough. Because usually in China, people will do anything in their power to prevent any like bad thing happening to them and disrupting their lives and causing trouble for themselves, right?
Yeah.
But it shows you that everybody's reached a point where they've got nothing.
They've reached breaking point. That is awesome. I don't know why, but I just feel in my gut that is awesome for humanity as a whole. Because enough is enough, man. It's almost like the whole, I don't know. Get a bit carried away. It's like the whole planet is just had enough.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
and they're actually willing to step in and help and get that guy out, and they're celebrating that he got out.
Yes.
Okay, so this happened previously, before all the stuff we just showed you earlier about step down CCP.
Is that guy with the signs, eh?
And now we got to talk about probably the spark that really set all of this.
We don't want to make any claim like that.
Yeah.
There's a billion things.
I mean, yeah, there are. But,
Yeah.
I would
Which
say
one?
of the very biggest sparks, okay? What you're seeing behind us here is a signal jammer, by the way. This is in Urumqi. They're sending signal jammers into places of protest in order to, stop people's cell phones so they can't send messages, they can't send videos, they can't, contact each other, they can't coordinate, that sort of.
It's funny, the signal jammer didn't work very well on that one.
Thing. But let's see if we can get to it. All right, now, what you're seeing here is a building on fire in Urumqi.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to get us out of here. I'm going to play it for you.
It's in graphics, so don't age restrict us.
What the hell?
Okay, so what's going on there is they're shouting, open the door, open that door, save us, because they'd been locked in the building because of zero COVID policy.
Oh my God. That's
Now, I don't know if you
disgusting.
know how bad it is, and it depends, of course, on the city and the region.
That makes
but
me so
people have
mad.
been, as
And
you
sad
know,
at the
welded
same
into their
time.
apartments during this whole thing. But especially in Xinjiang, places like Urumqi, they are brutal. They don't give a shit. They lock people in their apartments. They wire the doors shut. They put bars over there. They weld it, whatever. So when you have something like an accident.
Yeah, this is full on, man. See, we got here.
Where will the market go? If you think you know how high or how low, use IBKR Event Trader to
God,
trade your
this is
opinion
slow.
on yes or no questions in key CM.
I wonder what's going to
Tonight, we're
escalate
witnessing
through,
a
though.
significant citizen uprising in China. Protesters are rallying against the country's harsh, never-ending COVID-0 policy. Our Asia correspondent Patrick Fock is live
At
with the
CMC
latest.
Markets, we're for
Patrick, good
trading
evening.
without
Now,
the
this policy
trade-offs.
isn't
So charge
new.
into the bull
Why are
market
people
without.
so angry right now?
This is interesting as hell.
Well, Gemma, as you said, this has been a never-ending policy. It's gone on for 3 years, and people have simply had enough. It's also been triggered
See the
by this
signal jammer?
apartment fire that took place in Xinjiang province, in which 10 people died. And of course, a lot of people say
Shit.
that COVID curbs hampered rescue
Okay, so
efforts.
that's that
but
fire.
This protest movement is spreading.
Okay, so trying to triangulate with this.
Dental fire happened. There's no escape. So, of course, the people in the building died. 10 people died, apparently, including children, which is absolutely terrible.
That's the official
See, it's harder to hide everything now because everyone's got a phone with a camera,
report.
Yeah, that's the official report. Who knows how many people actually ended up dying in the blaze? And that sparked off a huge, huge uprising. Of course, because people are not going to just sit back and take it. It's like...
Pretty sure that's the same fire that this news is talking about here.
Quickly, I know there have been protests taking place in Australia and other countries as well, in Canada, and right here in Hong Kong right now. I wouldn't call this unrest exactly, but there is a vigil taking place with many people coming here to Central to show their solidarity with those people who died in Urumqi. And of course, a lot of people around China that are going to these protests right now are doing so at great risk for themselves. We know, as we know, there has been very little room for dissent under President Xi Jinping in China, and particularly when we look at some of the slogans that are being chanted at these protests, with some people calling for the downfall of the Communist Party, there is tremendous risk involved for many of.
Man, they should have sacrificed for bloody freedom of movement, I tell you.
The people that are going to the protests.
No doubt. Protesters are using this as an opportunity to demonstrate against censorship as well, are they not, Patrick?
Yeah, freedom of speech.
Yeah, that's right. They're protesting really against a whole host of things and latching on to anger over COVID curbs. And on the issue about censorship in particular, I mean, you might be able to see behind me, there are several people here holding up blank placards, as the protesters are doing on the mainland as well. That is to symbolize their discontent over censorship. And
this is some interesting stuff right now. Well, I find this interesting anyway, so I thought I'd just stream this live while I've been doing some like real world stuff and haven't been on the internet at all. Ads. So this one looks like just more news coverage.
Pandemic is a scientific reality. It's not something you can change by holding up a piece of white paper.
Einar Changen, thank you very much for giving us time today and for talking to WION.
Thank you.
What is going on? So this must be a tribute to the fire victims. Okay. Yeah, I can go back to these guys.
The last straw.
I mean, there's been way worse things that have happened, but this was one of those things that was just, it sparked off people because people were trying to share information about it. It's getting pulled down. People just got furious.
Yeah, they're furious.
It spread.
And it led to people going to the government buildings and, you know, making a huge protest and fuss in Urumqi. The government put out like an official notice to everyone: you may not talk about this outside of the official reports. They did all this kind of stuff to try and quell the protests, and of course it just really went crazy. We've seen footage of gunshots and things like that, which I can't verify that in particular, but it's been absolutely insane. And this, along with just the general frustration around the country, especially since China's just seen a huge jump in infections. Because, you know, what the CCP has been saying, I'm just going to play stuff in the background here. Let me take the volume down. We've seen, not only have we seen a huge jump in infections, but people are just reaching a point where they don't know what they're supposed to do. This clip that we're showing here behind us now went viral before it was removed from Chinese social media, of, you know, children being taken away to quarantine camps separated from their parents.
That's messed
up, which is heartbreaking. And again, this is just another one of the absolute insane, crazy policies.
And then, so this is normal. Like, trying to think of an example, man. It's just something you would do at school. I don't know. And you'll think it's normal. And then the next generation, they do the same something at school and they think it's normal. So this is the new thing? This is like what? Yeah, this is just sad. This is not good.
That have come into the forefront because of this stupid zero COVID policy. I mean, separating children from their parents to go put in a quarantine facility is madness. Okay, it's absolute madness. So this was going around. You've got things like this happening. You've got the fire happening. You've got all these little uprisings and, you know, lockdowns and so many new infections all over the place. You've got the Zhengzhou.
Look at this, man. There's like all these kids in hazmat suits. And everyone thinks this won't happen in a free country. The people in China probably think they're free to some extent. And now they're like, we are not free at all. How free are you to vote, you know, for someone who's not Democrat or Republican or independent? Yeah, but what's the likelihood they're actually going to get in? Two-party preferred system. It's the illusion of freedom in countries like, you know, Australia, for example. But we've got a lot better. But until something, I don't want to go there.
Uprisings. You've got all of this happening at the same time, and it's had this huge knock-on effect.
That's
as you say,
up.
So many small sparks everywhere. It's just kind of made this massive fire happen. Anyway, what do you want to add to this?
I want to go to the actual protest footage.
Yeah, I understand. We'll get to the protest footage, but you have to understand where it's coming from.
Sure.
Because There's a reason for it. It's not just people going out there and like, hey, you know what?
Absolutely.
We're tired of this.
But it's many
things. So we have to show you some of the many things.
For sure.
That have been happening. I mean, like, seriously, I don't care what your culture is or what your religion is or where you're from, but the idea of having your toddler taken away from you to a quarantine camp
that
might make you mad.
Absolutely appalling.
Yes.
You know, it's inhumane.
Why?
It is absolutely ridiculous. And having to dress your children in hazmat suits.
I mean, that's just inappropriate. It's just unnecessary.
And for what? COVID is
Zero
not a deadly disease.
Chinese people are getting sick of being laughed at in airports because the entire airport staff, they'll land in Melbourne or something.
Yeah.
And the airport staff from China is all dressed in hazmat suits, and everyone's like, what's going on? And the guys in the hazmat suits look at everyone and say, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? There's only so much absurdity people can take.
Yeah.
And only so many human rights can be
imposed.
kind of blocked. And honestly,
That's
it gets to a
insane.
point where when it attacks your personal freedom, like it actually attacks you personally, your kid, your cousin, your mom, your dad, then people get pissed off.
Yeah.
Right? This is just too much.
He's right though. It doesn't, the chilling effect doesn't affect you until it does, and then you get upset about it. Meanwhile, it's been slowly encroaching on us all.
Yeah.
So,
I'll go back to
the big stuff.
Just like the virus has been, just like the freedoms, like lots of people tried to warn everyone. Now they want the amnesty. Some people got called crazy because they could see logic.
Yeah, past that.
Yeah.
The big stuff was kicking off in Shanghai, and that's really what started piquing my interest because that was there was a bit of a lull in the storm. There's a lot of dissent
Welcome
back
to
during
the stream.
horrible lockdown.
Watching another
back then.
stream.
Yeah.
But it never got to a point where people weren't going to attack
It's
the central
inception.
government. They were attacking the local officials. They were attacking. And it's not that people didn't internally blame the central government. It's just that you're not allowed to.
No.
And you're easy pickings. You're an easy target if you're the guy that stands up like that Chongqing guy and says, hey, give me liberty, give me death. They start using phrases that are very illegal.
Give me liberty or
When
give
you
me
start targeting
death.
the central government, it's a different story. So really, it surprised me to see when people were sending us videos left and right and center from everywhere around China.
Yeah.
I even recognize some places I've been to that are protesting now, and I'm like, wow, this is wild because all of these things don't seem to be coordinated in their reasoning, right?
What are these guys saying?
It says
Renmin Wan
It
Sui.
sounds like it's very muffled.
I'm pretty sure they're saying Renmin Wan Sui, which is
See how they're going to control this.
To let local authorities make their own judgment about how much they can relax the restrictions and move towards, another more balanced strategy in order to.
Surely at this point in China, their government's like, okay, our people have had enough. They're protesting. They're going insane all over the damn country. We need to ease back on the zero COVID policy. Like, isn't that logical? Or am I the only one noticing this? Like, is that too hard to achieve? Obviously, in China. Seriously, what? Makes no sense.
Normally in China you'll hear Gongchangdan Wan Sui, which means like
Communist Party.
Long live the Communist Party. They're saying long live the people.
Yes.
So it's things like this.
Keep playing it.
Yeah, well, it's things like this that really you would never see in China because the repercussions for doing this sort of thing are drastic in China.
Yes.
Just drastic.
We have showdowns in Inner Mongolia, like I said, and in other places in Xinjiang as well, where people are clashing. And so they're sending out SWAT team and they're sending out police, riot police.
What the hell?
And people are coming into massive clashes just right in the street. And people are getting cell phone videos out before the signal jammers can show up. And again, it's really shitty because we're seeing stuff come to a head and then it just stops. All the correspondence stops. The people lose contact. There's no more videos coming out of it. And it's just coming to a huge head, right? It's because they can stop stuff in their tracks. Like China has the ability to stop everything. But, what were you going to say?
But they
I
won't.
was just going to say, you know
They
what the
won't.
official state media and propaganda is saying about all of this?
What?
The coronavirus is 100% under control here right now.
That's right. That's right.
No, quite seriously. I've been keeping an eye on the the usual suspects who defend the CCP. And their narrative is that this is all an isolated incident, one incident revolving Foxconn.
Yep, and then
wage disputes.
And then
Dude, this is
just
I can't believe this. Is this what reality is this? Seriously. Maybe some of the clown world's been leaking out and somehow they've been picking it up and they've just realized, who cares? Just say it. Free speech. Because they realize some countries are like arguing about the most insane things because we've got too much freedoms and they're trapped in a little bloody hazmat suits, having their kids taken away from them, being burnt to death in buildings. They're like, yeah, well, maybe we're gonna get together and talk about this. We had enough. Look at the phones! Shit. There's microchips everywhere. Are they semiconductors, whatever? Huh. Sorry, stream, I've been completely captivated by this, so I thought I'll do a live reaction. I haven't got much more to add, like I said. The news I got a hex fade, got a haircut, I got my hex hat, I've been doing real world stuff, and Crypto's gone through a learning phase. Hexican's gonna come out on top. Just like the people of China are going to. Well, I hope so. I hope so. Because this is insane.
After days of protests against China's stringent COVID restrictions, the Chinese government says reporting about the demonstrations is inaccurate. This as there are reports of several protesters being detained in Shanghai. Scores of demonstrators gathered in the capital Beijing and the financial hub Shanghai on Sunday, holding blank pieces of paper to express discontent. Some even called for Chinese President Xi Jinping to step down.
This is crazy.
A deadly fire last week in Urumqi, the capital of the northwest China Xinjiang region, has become the catalyst for the current unrest. Many are blaming COVID lockdowns for hampering rescue efforts. The Chinese government has blamed what it calls forces with ulterior motives for linking a deadly fire in Xinjiang to strict COVID measures.
Nah, man, you're like, that's crazy. Forces with ulterior motives. Nah, that's all good, man. I'm literally just watching a stream. Like I'm streaming, watching another stream.
Zero COVID policy and has been making adjustments based on the reality.
They were saying they think it's forces with ulterior motives causing these protests. It's like, it's nothing to do with your like zero COVID policy and taking people's kids away and like welding people in buildings and burning people alive and beating down on people because they want to walk around the streets and, you know, implementing and rolling out your central bank digital currencies and lack of food maybe being sent to them or anything like that. No, it's forces with ulterior motives. Shit.
China has always welcomed foreign journalists to conduct reporting activities in China in accordance with relevant laws and regulation, and has done a lot to facilitate their reporting and provide convenience for them. At the same time, while conducting reporting activities in China, foreign journalists need to consciously follow Chinese laws and regulations.
Yeah, to go over to China, you probably need to wear a hazmat suit and have about 20 boosters, you know.
China, a crowd gathered outside the Chinese embassy in London calling for an end to President Xi Jinping's restrictive zero COVID policy. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by Jean-Pierre Cabestan from Hong Kong. He's an emeritus professor of political science at Hong Kong Baptist University.
Can you imagine if COVID brings down the authoritarian regime of China?
Criticizing not only the leadership of the party, but also Xi Jinping himself, asking him to step down, also criticizing the one-party system, asking for more freedom and democracy. Of course, that's maybe a call made by a minority of students, but and elite members in the urban areas of China. But it has spread around the country very quickly, and it looks like there's a momentum here, which the government will need to take into account. I think the Xi Jinping is not in a mood to compromise on this issue, and let alone on the one-party system and the way that China is ruled by the Communist Party. So
all it's going to take is if these police officers decide, or whatever they are, decide to not enforce this bullshit upon these poor people.
Everywhere in China, so it's easy to spot protesters.
But then I guess their funds would stop working. They'll lose their pass.
I think they will have to adjust their so-called dynamic zero-COVID policy.
They're going to change
gradually move towards an exit strategy. The problem is we don't have any idea how this exit strategy will look like, and and the recent decisions made by the central government have
barricades. They're supposed to be for COVID, so the virus can't get through that. Is that what they're telling us?
To let local authorities
or is that like
make their own
hurting people,
about how much
like the sheep walk around in a circle?
The restrictions and move towards another more balanced strategy in order to manage the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, after days of protests against China's stringent COVID restrictions, the Chinese government has finally reacted and has called the reports of protests as simply inaccurate. This as there are reports of several protesters being detained in Shanghai. The scores of demonstrators, in fact, gathered in the capital city of Beijing and also in the financial hub of Shanghai on Sunday night. They held up blank pieces of paper to express their discontent on China's censorship of these protests. Many of the protesters even called for President Xi Jinping to step down.
How long is this stream been going for? I'll have to. A little bit over an hour. I'll end this stream because I'm just going to keep watching this. This is pretty damn interesting.
Now, the demonstrators also clashed with the police in Shanghai. The videos on your screens show the police, in fact, detaining several of the demonstrators who were then taken away.
What the hell's going on though? They don't have enough jails to hold these people. The legal structure is broken. They've probably got nowhere to send these people and no court structure. The rule of law is extremely weak in China. Like, extremely weak.
And also against President Xi Jinping.
You break like a law and there's no court to... You don't get charged with anything. But you broke the law though. But they can take away your freedoms though and lock you in a,
an isolated incident in Shanghai, and those ungrateful Shanghai people, they've always been like kind of anti-government, Now they're just getting all pissed off.
And then it's an isolated incident because it's just the Xinjiang government, didn't handle
By
that
the way, this
building
is
fire.
Korla in Xinjiang. This is completely far away from Urumqi, the capital of protest.
This is fascinating.
Showing solidarity with each other. And I suspect what the last thing China can do, right, or that wants you to see right now is potentially some of these police joining the protesters.
Yeah.
Some of these people are at least stepping down and saying like,
okay,
this is out of our hands now. And that is what we're waiting for. We're waiting for this kind of stuff to end up in that situation, or
they might roll in the military.
Massive violent crackdown, right?
Yeah.
You had student leaders around. Skip past.
Yeah, let's skip past. We've just done this. Yeah.
You had student leaders get up and have their own manifestos, their own reasons. They set up loudspeakers, and it was almost as if the first coordination was throughout all the universities in China.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And we're going to show you evidence of that in a minute because I've been sent a document which has been shared. You see, the Chinese internet is so heavily censored that they simply delete people's moments, they delete discussions on anything. But what people have been doing is using the equivalent of like Google Docs, Google Documents, to share. So cloud-based documents which are then being shared and people can access them. And as long as they are on websites that are not blocked in China, but not under Chinese control, people can still read them.
It's on the cloud.
I was sent one of these documents, and in the document, which we'll show you shortly, it has photos and memos of all the universities around China, big and small, all putting up protest signs, all sharing their thoughts on this. And I think you're absolutely right that the genesis of all of this was the universities.
Yeah, I think it was the organization of it. The dissent and all of the distrust of the government right now is in everyone's hearts.
Yes.
But the culmination of this really was the student leaders that stood up and said, okay, this is our time. And I would be interested to see what kind of tool they use to communicate with each other, because like I said, it was all wiped, right?
Yeah.
But they managed to keep it under CCP radar until the genesis happened, which I find fascinating. They usually can nip this is why you don't see massive revolts in China that spread at the same time, because it's impossible. The Chinese government shuts it down and disappears the people that organize anything. So everyone's too scared to do it.
There's too many people now.
Since 1989,
can't
this is the
disappear all
first
these people.
time I've seen that. Was that a good speech?
They can try.
There was a speech there. I'll just say.
They're gonna run out of police
I'll show you so
officers
much stuff.
or whatever they are.
He says, "I represent myself. I represent my own thoughts, my own self," and that insinuating the Chinese government is not the one that represents me, and we need to stand up for justice for the fires and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Inner Mongolia, massive snowstorms, people still going out there, going to government buildings, storming them, taking leaders hostage. Things like this. This is unprecedented. You do not see people rise up against the central government here, guys.
Never.
They're going to
This is
local government
crazy.
offices, but their messaging is the central government.
Yeah.
Never heard that.
CCP step down Xi Jinping.
Never heard that before. Ever.
It's one of those things that if you say those sort of things in China, that's you. You're done. It's
a death sentence.
Yeah, you're done. You're detained. You'll probably never see the light of day again.
See, I wonder how their social credit score is going to handle everyone being red. Because if enough people protest, it'll break their matrix, like literally. Pretty sure it would.
You don't get a warning or a fine. You're done.
And I wanted some parallels here to Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
Hong Kong,
guys
a
are
tiny
awesome.
little place. Millions of people took to the streets. They didn't want Beijing influence. You expect that from Hong Kong? Has access to the outside world, freedom of speech, freedom of media. They can watch what we watch, right? They can watch us, right? People like us. People in China can't watch us. People in China don't have access to any, and I'm not joking, any media outside of China. None. Zero. Unless you have a VPN. The vast majority of people don't have VPNs, which are illegal in China.
Yeah.
So
Why
to see something
VPNs
like this
illegal, man,
grassroots
in
start
China?
across a massive country the size of the US without those methods of communication is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's insane.
You did have some videos coming out of some of the riot police and things like that are kind of being more like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I would assume if the crowds can overpower the whole situation, it could get pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had places in Guangzhou. Remember, Guangzhou had a big protest, unrelated to Foxconn.
Yes,
a lot
completely.
of the people running
Thank you for
defense
tuning
the
in.
CCP were ignoring that one.
Sorry,
It's spreading
this is a
massively in
stream.
Guangzhou
Basically, I'm
right
watching
now.
another replay.
They've been under lockdowns,
of
and
the
they are
Chinese,
also using protest anthems that Hong
revolution.
Kongers used.
Yes.
And they are also
2020
calling for the CCP to
2023
step down.
revolution.
This
Is
not
this what
just
we're gonna
about
see?
local lockdowns anymore, guys.
As well as the
This is a deep south, all the
22,
way down south.
2023
We just looked at the
economy
extreme north.
crash.
It's all over
As
the
well
country, and I
as
think that's the important thing to
crypto
realize here is that this
contagion.
is not,
Who knows?
one area.
Yeah.
It's not one
It's
specific thing.
every place in China.
I mean,
Wuhan just blew up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what we can definitely say for sure is the one thing that's causing all of this is the zero COVID policy.
For sure.
Is the lockdowns.
Yeah,
People
they
are
can't-
tired of
they
it because their
can't-
freedoms
can't
keep
keep
getting
going with
taken
the zero
away.
COVID
If you
policy.
read that university manifesto, it's all about that. They're like, yes, we'll lock down for now. You give us freedom for a little while, and then what's going to happen? We're going to be locked down again.
Yes.
You
So
know?
you saw these manifestos pop up.
Yeah.
You saw the Bannerman's message pop up.
Yes.
You saw
This is
graffiti pop
crazy.
up. You saw no lockdown graffiti pop up. You saw all kinds of weird ways to
People
protest.
are now, this is the document I was sent, and I wanted to show you. There's a manifesto. I've actually sent it off to the Great Translation Movement to get a proper
they legitimately
translation
might be
on
like
Twitter,
Chinese
so
info
we should have
warriors.
that soon.
And Chinese
you can see
HEXICANS, who
these are
knows?
all different universities, okay? And it says like go be ren ziyou on one of those, which means dogs have more freedom than people.
Yeah.
Actually true. Actually
Very true.
in China right
Except
now.
they get murdered.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. People
by the
just
pandemic staff.
if you take a look, that's like a Jilin Daxue, which means the Jilin University.
Yeah.
You can see these are the documents I was telling you about, which are being passed around.
Yeah,
on
this is
sort of cloud.
This is clever,
really important because this shows the scale of all over the country.
Yes.
It's not one place. You guys
Reminds me
understand
of
1.4
Vendetta.
billion people. You know how many universities there are in China?
No way.
Yeah.
These are if you could look at a heat map, it would just be one color.
Yes.
Because they're across. They're even in highly restricted places like Western China.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Yes, exactly. Give me liberty, give me death. What we're seeing is all these are all different universities. Okay, like this is the Xi'an Waiguo Yu Daxue. All right. And this is, in Xi'an.
Foreign languages college.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing a lot of this.
So I'm
by the
glad
way,
I didn't
which
go
is
to
an
China.
Interesting way of protesting is people writing xing, 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 or how, or just how on any propaganda.
Yeah.
So if there's
Very interesting.
It's interesting. When there's a big propaganda poster, they just write they spray paint how, which kind of means like
Hello,
whatever.
if you just joined?
I'm
just watching a stream about the street.
we're still trying to figure out the exact thing that's going on with that.
Give me liberty
that
or
is a
give me
form.
death
Yeah, you see
for the
that.
Chinese.
Did you include that video? The
I
protest.
didn't. I mean, we have to get it properly translated.
Okay.
It's quite long, but there was a video going on around about how the Western China should rise up.
Yeah.
And it was very well made.
Yeah, I actually want to go back to that one because there's a poster.
But that's in Nanjing.
Yeah.
That's in Nanjing. That's all the way on the other side of the country.
Yeah. You
Right?
see that poster up there? The top one. It's basically advertising that
Yes.
video that went around because it's very inspirational. And we will be showing you that on the Friday show with proper subtitles.
We got to get
We'll
properly
translate it
we'll do
ourselves. Yeah, we'll do it. But it's very
This is
inspirational and
interesting
it's
as hell.
inspired a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely all over the country, we're seeing different forms of protest, all against the government and all against the lockdowns. I'll actually get us out of this so you can see what's going on
It's
here.
wild because, again, I half expected anything with some semblance of people coming together is going to be mostly about zero COVID.
Yeah, that's in Nanjing over there.
Yeah. But a lot of this
I think this is
anti-central.
more than COVID, people. Maybe they had enough of their central bank digital currencies, not being able to spend their money.
Going to move away from this.
Right, Patrick. Also coming back to a point that you'd made earlier, people have been demonstrating, calling for the removal of President Xi as well. So how do you see the situation unfolding on that front?
Well,
It's
certainly
probably
there
not gone
have
down
been
well.
some eye-opening and vocal protests and challenges directly to President Xi Jinping. In some cases, we've been hearing reports of people chanting, "We don't want lifelong leaders, we don't want emperors." But as I say, this is something that could cause them a lot of trouble. There has, as I say, been very little room for dissent under President Xi Jinping and very little room for anybody to challenge the Chinese leadership. So there is every possibility that the government could crack down heavily on this protest movement. They certainly don't want
They're gonna
to
roll
be
out the
seen
military.
to relenting to protesters out on the streets.
Oh,
and
I
part
didn't
of
want
how
to say
this
that.
evolves in the coming days is whether or not there is continued momentum. But already we're seeing security being stepped up in various places, roadblocks being
I'm
set up in Shanghai.
predicting media blackout, and all of a sudden the internet stops working over in China completely, so they can test their internet kill switches for China, which will make accessing cloud computing extremely difficult unless somehow they can access Elon Musk's Starlink. Elon, come and save us again.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for giving us the latest on this.
I would hate to see that. Or if they've got these jammers on mass scale, but I don't think they're going to jam their own stuff to the point where... Yeah, please don't. And it's either going to reappear and everything's going to be gone, or the military is going to be marching on the streets. One of the two. Or three, they know that everyone's watching, so they're not going to... I don't know. I don't know. That's my conspiracy brain kicking in. But they're not gonna like this. goddamn right, Free Assange. Oh my god, I can just think of all the things I can type in this chat. Oh wait. Oh wait. Yeah, man. I'm not sure, were they building those massive COVID intern camps? I'm pretty sure it was in China. It was like these if you can imagine shipping containers, like white shipping containers, just rows and rows of them, and they're like, what are these for? And I hadn't been following the news in China, and maybe they're not COVID quarantine, maybe they're jails, I don't know. Which is scary because, yeah. It's not a conspiracy when it starts happening, you know. Imagine the guy running around China going, I'm telling you, these COVID lockdowns are to keep us under control. And then, yeah. And then it happened. And it continued to happen. And everyone said, but we're not doing anything wrong, we'll be fine. The government loves us, they'll take care of us. We need the government to take care of us. Man, I hope not. That's just savage. Where is it? I'll try and find it for you. How is it Chinese COVID
Hundreds
camps?
of protesters held demonstrations in Beijing and Shanghai as protests over stringent COVID restrictions flared for the third day. In Shanghai, there were clashes reported between demonstrators and the police. The protests have spread to several cities in the wake of a deadly fire in the country's far west. More in this next.
Was it these ones?
Clashes erupted between demonstrators and police in Shanghai on Sunday as protests over China's stringent COVID restrictions flared for a third day and spread to several cities. Video from the scene in Shanghai showed police seizing and then carrying away one protester. The wave of civil disobedience is unprecedented in mainland China, where room for dissent has been all but eliminated under President Xi Jinping, as frustration mounts over his signature zero-COVID policy. Protesters also took to the streets in the cities of Wuhan and Chengdu on Sunday. In Beijing, small gatherings of people held peaceful vigils, while students on numerous university campuses around China gathered to demonstrate over the weekend. The protests come after a deadly apartment fire on Thursday in the country's far west, where millions of residents have been under some of the country's longest lockdowns, barred from leaving their homes for as long as 100 days. Video obtained by Reuters showed residents.
I have to try and find out. We have some relatives over there, and they were getting food dropped to them, and then the food quality sort of started dropping off, and then we haven't heard from them since. And maybe this is why. I'm not sure how they go on.
And rescue efforts. China has stuck with Xi's zero-COVID policy even as much of the world has lifted most restrictions. While low by global standards, China's case numbers have hit record highs for days.
I remember the phone call was something like, everything's fine, everything's good
Saturday,
here.
prompting yet more lockdowns in cities across the country.
Chinese protesters have turned to blank sheets of paper to express their anger, which has gone beyond social media to some of.
Well, looks like this is going to go for a while. I'll just let the stream roll.
Something. I can't reiterate this, guys. Like I said, in Hong Kong, you expect that, right?
Yeah.
You do not expect this in mainland China because you can't do it.
They're holding up blank posters, as a form of protest.
You die if you do this. That's why this is so crazy, is that they're all coming together to do it. You can't take down everyone, right?
No, you can't.
That's the feeling in everyone's hearts right now.
I think
it has reached that point where people are so, they've just had it. Because when you take people's freedoms away again and again and again,
quarantine sites.
all of a sudden they realize
how many can they house?
Yeah, all the bad things that people say about this government, they are actually probably true.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Accommodate quarter of a million.
And a lot of my Chinese friends who I've been speaking to have the same sentiment because in their lifetime, you know, the people my age, they haven't experienced this kind of oppression.
No.
You know?
No.
Because they grew up after China opened up. They grew
so
up
China
during
was
the
brutal
reform.
and horrible, and then
Yeah.
it relinquished some of that, and they lived in that time.
By the way, you see this? This
Yeah.
guy is doing the It's My Duty cosplay, basically. isn't
Yeah,
he?
we'll bring that in the Friday show.
Yeah.
We'll bring this guy back. But yeah, easy even in these. This
This
is Wuhan.
is yeah, exactly. Wuhan again is there are protests there, there are lockdowns there, no pool parties, but you know
there was at one time.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that this is
Yeah,
everywhere.
no pool parties.
Yeah, so what I
What happened to the pool parties?
They
They were
all
the
these signs, right?
They opened up
Like,
with the
even just
freest
A4
apparently,
pieces of paper.
and now look
pieces
what
of
happened.
paper. One of
Now look
those
what
would have made our show. One of those would have made the news. If
Yeah.
one person found one of those around the country, like Bannerman, one thing makes the world.
Bannerman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine that times.
That's Shenzhen Dashue. That's where I studied in China. Represent.
Imagine that one Bannerman incident times 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. This is unprecedented. I want people to understand the scale. This isn't one place.
There they are, like
Yeah,
they
there's the
write how, and then look, you see people tearing down the propaganda as well.
This
I
is
saw some
crazy.
people,
They've
some videos people
realized
didn't share
that
here that were standing up.
we
to
the people
protesters
have
saying,
the
like,
power.
Stop this. You know, like their teachers and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this, and everyone rebels.
Yeah, they're like, get out of here.
It's unified now.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see.
Peacefully,
It's great to see
politically.
people standing up for their freedoms.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And it's just it I don't know how to express it, but it warms my heart to see people finally standing up.
Yeah,
it does.
Because there's just
It's
so
just
much you
something
can take.
satisfying about this.
You know, 吃苦, as they say, you know,
Yeah.
eat bitter. People in China have been experiencing so much oppression and suppression over the last 3 years.
Not just 3 years though. I'm going to say since like 2015.
Sure, but I mean,
You know,
obviously
so
with the
really
lockdowns,
bad, yeah,
with the
for sure.
lockdowns. And
I'm just
another thing
worried
that
what comes
definitely
next.
helped spark all of this off was the FIFA World Cup, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's another spark.
Yeah, it's
Again,
another
I'm not going
spark.
to attribute anything to any single event.
No, it's just a spark.
Yeah.
It's
and,
like,
I mean, look
just
at the
when you
guy
think you
who
won,
was
something
saying,
worse
"Give me
comes
liberty, give me
along."
death," that got dragged off. He was
in a speech.
He was saying, "Look at the World Cup. People are having
I had this
fun
gut
without
feeling 2020 was
masks
going to be like a
and enjoying
really,
life."
really good
Catalyst,
year,
right? It's
and
like,
then
oh,
what
yeah,
happened?
you're right. You know.
And that's the thing. The
Not
Chinese government has been telling
relating
the
to
people of
cryptocurrency,
China
but
for so long
the
now
world
that everybody outside of China is
geopolitical
worse off.
They're
theater.
dying.
They're all dying from COVID. Look how good we are. We protect you with our zero COVID. Everyone else is suffering outside. And when they see these images of people having a good time and you know, just enjoying life and living life normally, it makes them question what they've been told by the government.
Yes.
You know, people are putting together like these kind of
Can't
art
question
masks
things.
and
Questioning
stuff.
is
Masks in
bad.
Beijing, they made like
Masks
the
with
mask
blood
tree,
on.
and there's bloody masks.
Yeah, things like that. And
It was context, right?
yeah,
It was context for people. I want to say a couple things, but
Yeah.
maybe you can just run some
These
of the
guys have
protests
got
in the
some
background and
really
lower
good
volume
data.
so we don't
Yeah, yeah.
blast
Really good.
everyone's ears
sure,
out.
sure. I'll just
yeah.
just put that there.
Yeah. So I'm not here to make an impassioned speech or anything, but I do want to say that it's if you spend over a decade in China, like we did, and you fall in love with the country, the people, the language, the food, you buy a house there, you settle down, your friends are Chinese,
You marry into Chinese family.
Your family, your mom and dad are still your mom and dad back home, but your mom and dad now are your Chinese mom and dad.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing mundane tasks. You're helping wash the dishes. It's just you become part of daily life in China.
Yeah.
And all of that gets upended because of one man's bullshit.
Yeah.
One man dictator bullshit.
Yeah,
because
they
of
would
his
have
paranoia. When you're busy, you and your friend are
experienced,
busy
like-
going around making China look like a great place because it's a genuinely awesome country.
Yes.
And the people are amazing, and everything that we discover
They
is
feel like
something
they're
new
being
and
attacked, you
and
know, 'cause
giving
they are.
voices to people that have never had voices before out in the countryside, right? When all of that comes crashing down because a guy in power, Xi Jinping, doesn't want you sharing that with the rest of the world because it's a true image into China, and you are
It's like they've been
basically
adopted
forced out in a
into
way.
China, you know?
And then you have to reel with the fact that, holy shit, this country is falling into deep,
It's
deep
falling.
oppression, deep authoritarianism. Look what's happened with the lockdowns, and you watch it get worse and worse and worse and worse. All you can do is keep lines of communication open with your friends and the people you know in China who get threatened for just knowing you, by the way.
Yes.
Who get demonized and pushed down in society and visited by police because they're your friends.
Yep.
You watch all of this happen, and then
Crazy shit.
finally, thousands of people stand up and realize the exact same thing you've been saying for years. And the exact same thing we've been demonized for years now, being called racist because we want the best for China and Chinese people. We want freedom for China and Chinese people. We've been called pieces of shit. We've been called instigators and racists and bigots and all this stuff because the Chinese government wants us to keep our mouths shut.
Yes.
And now, for what we've been saying for years now, that the Chinese government does not represent the Chinese people. The people want freedom. They are human beings. They deserve that. They deserve everything that you have. Just like all of us. They deserve a voice. They deserve to be part of the international dialogue. And that's been taken away from them. And finally, it's coming to light that actually, yeah, we're right. Chinese people do want to have a voice and they do want to stand up for themselves and they are human beings and they deserve everything. They deserve everything in this world and they're finally standing up for it.
And the Chinese government does not represent the Chinese people. And the Chinese people are not the Chinese government. And we always have to draw that line.
That's right.
All the time and make sure.
100%
because that's
correct.
what the Chinese government has been trying to do, is conflate the two for the longest time. And so if you criticize the Chinese government and its policies,
so when someone says they don't like the policies of China, most of the time it's not that they're being racist, they're pointing out that the Communist Party authoritarian regime does not represent the Chinese people, you know? Most of the time the people speaking out are the ones that want freedom for the Chinese people, and it's not that they're it's just good to know there's other people like this that think like this, that actually do this. This is insane. This is amazing.
you're suddenly
I should probably
racist
spam
against
out the
Chinese
link as well,
people.
but
And that's just absolute nonsense.
Oh, it's just a part of a massive campaign to shut people up, right?
Correct.
But this is what's in the Chinese people's hearts.
The
And you
Chinese
can hear
people,
them say-
everybody in China right now that's standing
It's like
up.
freedom,
I
real
applaud
freedom
you.
for them, you know?
This is your moment. This is fantastic, and I'm so happy to see people finally standing up. It's incredible. It's like I said, it's the most heartwarming and humbling thing to experience. And I wish you all the best, and we will continue to do our absolute best
spread the
to
word.
give you a voice.
Man, I hope these
Because
guys
all
stay
you have
safe
out there
if
are
they
these
are
pieces
still in
of
China.
shit.
The coronavirus is 100% under control here right now.
Who work for the Chinese government, who are there to try and distract and to further the agenda of the Chinese government and continue to help suppress the people of China. And that's not what we're all about.
No. If you see anyone, and this is, I think is a good way for people to go forward. If you see anyone trying to deflect from what's happening right now, because this is massive, guys.
Yeah.
This is national.
This is
event.
huge.
If you see anyone
This is-
trying to say, hey, it's this, or hey, it's actually just a couple people, or
Yeah,
oh,
or
no,
it's
don't worry about that. That was
isolated.
isolated. That has nothing to do with it. Then you know
Nah,
exactly
man.
who they're working
This is the
for.
global
And
awakening.
this is the time where we stop getting confused by the disinformation, by the agents working for the Chinese government to make sure you don't see this story.
Yeah.
This is the time we say, fuck you, get out of my news feed,
Yeah.
get off of my YouTube page, get off of my Twitter. This, you're about to see an influx
Yeah, come on,
of
Elon.
massive disinformation campaigns.
Get these
The
Chinese
first thing
agents
I saw
out,
happen
man.
when I started posting about
Shit.
this
Yeah.
was comments coming
Come on,
in
Twitter
saying,
AI. Come on, Google
mistranslating
AI.
what the people were saying.
Yes.
You show a clip without subtitles and it says like, get rid of the CCP, get rid of Xi Jinping.
Step down Xi Jinping.
People were saying, oh, they're just saying too much COVID lockdowns. They're trying to embellish what's actually being said.
Yeah.
And this is the time where
Don't
you guys are not
surprise me,
confused
man.
anymore because you came to the right source here. You saw what's happening, and this is just the beginning of something massive.
Yeah.
I am never going to be one to say this is going to be some
They got
massive
those,
successful revolution.
Yeah.
I think the CCP has
Was it
every
the
power
Confucius
in their,
Institute?
in their
And
arsenal
they're like
to stop
infiltrating
this.
They
all
will.
the
And they
universities
will
throughout the
probably
West.
stop this, but this is the first time we can see
Probably
right
all the
front
first
and
world
center
countries,
what the
I'd
people
imagine.
want.
And you can see that what the Chinese government has been
And it would not
lying to the
surprise
rest of
me
the world about
if
isn't true. Chinese people do not.
there's other
back what they're
operations
doing.
going
The
on
Chinese people are
throughout
not
the
on
world.
board with
No.
this shit.
No.
They're just doing what they're told because they don't have a
Not
choice.
the Chinese
And
people.
finally, they're standing
The
up. for
Communist Party
themselves.
regime.
And this is what we're going to do. We're going to end this
And this-
now.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is have a massive follow-up on Friday.
Yeah.
this
Ooh, that's
coming
going to be
Friday,
good.
Where we're going to have fully translated documents for you. We're going to have
We'll probably
the-
stream a
that
stream.
video that's been going around.
Not on
inspiring
as they
people, fully
stream, but
translated for you. And of course, we'll have a complete follow-up on everything that's happened since this, because this is all happening
That was
right
really
now.
good.
Yes.
It was happening last night. It's still happening.
My computer's
right now in
dying though.
China. Can you run
Too many
the page? We're
tabs.
going to be live on Monday.
But yeah, so oh wait, it'll come back. It's the Matrix. The Matrix is attacking. It is official. But they did an analysis and they said people are actually borderline becoming racist because they're being misfed information, and they might consider, I don't know, like Chinese people bad, and they're not differentiating between the Chinese government and Chinese people. And when they see someone who looks Chinese, they think they're somehow related to the Chinese government. And the analysis was that they're actually a part of not the problem, but they're a part of the victims, the people who think like that, because they can't wrap their mind around larger events taking place in the world. So I would dare link that to the inability to analyze data and see trends or patterns forming, because it's just a shame to, it's very common. I think now it's a common thing, and which is a shame because people don't understand what's actually going on. And this society we live in now, you just fed crap by the mainstream media. Well, generally, like, this coverage is pretty good, but you just get fed absolute garbage by the mainstream, and you can't differentiate.
Demonstrate over the weekend. The protests come after a deadly apartment fire on Thursday in the country's
You can't
far west,
differentiate
where millions of residents have been under some of the country's longest lockdowns, barred
what is
from
actually
leaving
going
their
on,
homes
you
for
know.
as long as 100 days.
It's crazy.
Video obtained by Reuters showed residents chanting "Lift the COVID lockdown" and arguing with guards in hazmat suits after the fire led to accusations that lockdowns were a factor in
There's
the
a lot of
blaze
people,
that
man.
killed
Free the
10
Chinese people.
Officials have denied that COVID measures hampered escape and rescue efforts. China has stuck with Xi's zero COVID policy even as much of the world has lifted most restrictions. While low by global standards, China's case numbers have hit record highs.
The
for
argument
days,
then,
with nearly 40,000
the argument then,
infections
if
on
people
Saturday,
were
prompting yet more
working with,
lockdowns in
say, the
cities
communist
across the
regime of
country.
China, and they have this authoritarian state in place, then the argument is they could use that to track and trace them, because that would be a part of the central bank digital currency, because you could see where everyone is using their money. You could see where everyone's going because there's cameras everywhere, footage, whatever. So
China's major stock indices and its currency
that's
today
kind of a very
has
complex topic to talk about.
COVID-19 restrictions over the
I
weekend.
think a guy, Lex Friedman, was actually talking about a similar sort of thing, basically saying this surveillance can be used for good. Personally, myself, I don't like the surveillance because it surveils everyone and everything, and I don't think I should have my freedoms infringed upon because of not a witch hunt, but an actual threat that needs to be stamped out. I just don't think that's the way to do it. The mass data collection, why not targeted data collection? You know, why not identify? But it's like, oh, how do we identify if we can't track and trace everyone and everything? So it's very, very complex. So I don't know what's going to happen. And yes, it's very interesting times. It's insane. The technology has just got way ahead of us. The legislation's not caught up, hasn't been, like, can't keep up. The tech, the AI, the coding, it's insane. I think they talk about it, they're like, do we need to, like, ease back on all this AI? We might have, like, you know, robots, like, that have not rights, but they can lethal robots. I mean, I guess we got them already with drones, but yeah, do we stop that before it happens, or do we let it happen and go, oh fuck, now we've got these insane war machines released upon the world, we don't know how to deal with them. That's just some of the things I think about anyway. But coming back to this is good. Seeing the protests, very good.
To arrest them even later. The other thing is, I think they will have to adjust their so-called dynamic zero COVID policy
I think this is
and gradually move towards an exit strategy. The problem is we don't have any idea how this exit strategy will look like, and and the recent decisions made by the central government have actually
basically we weren't born to consume is what I think.
To decentralize decisions, to let local authorities make their own judgment about how much we can relax the restrictions and move towards another more balanced strategy in order to manage the COVID-19 pandemic.
To work 9 to 5.
Jean-Pierre, what do these white paper protests symbolize? And some experts say that the public discontent may continue over the next few months.
We never found
do you agree
any
with
cryptocurrency. We never found
it's hard to tell.
like
what I would
Hex.
say is that
They would provide
the anti-COVID,
some level of freedom.
Confrontations between
maybe in the future might
communities
provide more
and
freedom,
local authorities
depending on how we
multiplied
use our
over the last few months.
intellect.
Now, the first time that these anti-COVID protests have become political, have turned into political protests against the government,
all the exchanges
and the regime itself
being crashed.
Now,
just like
I think
someone
quite a number of
predicted,
people will be worried and
who created this
afraid of,
amazing crypto,
supporting this movement.
It's absolutely
but
insane
it
to see.
symbolizes, I think,
And then we see the chilling effect.
Very, very a lack of patience, now within the society regarding the authorities, and the fact that China is the odd man out. I mean, China is really an exception and looks like living on another planet than the rest of the world. And people watch TV, they watch particularly the football competition in Qatar, and they see that everyone around the world doesn't.
That's just make a stream with the World Cup. We'll probably get more views.
Confined to lockdowns and masks everywhere, and so the restriction to normal life are still pretty.
I'll head off too.
Large and constraining.
Or
so
it'll be
that's
like,
why
I just leave it running.
Turn
Turn off the camera and just loop into YouTube.
But the whether it's going to become a more articulated and organized movement against the regime and asking for democracy, I think it's too early to tell.
All right, we'll have to end this conversation here. Thank you very much for your input. I've been talking to Jean-Pierre Cabeston. Thank you.
我们要勇敢一点。我打一朵花，我犯罪了吗？我犯法了吗？没有就，他们不敢抓我们。不敢。我站这里有车吗？绿的。中国人需要勇敢一点。大家，国家里抓走那么多人，他们都没有老婆孩子，没有工作吗？我们不用怕，怕什么呢？
Nah, I heard I don't follow it, man. I think South Korea was playing, but I think I missed it. But I've just been like cleansing off of the internet for a bit. Then I came back on and I saw this because I was gonna make a stream. Like, there's literally I've not seen anything because I saw all the exchange bullshit, but that's just like the ongoing, never-ending. How deep does the rabbit hole go? Who's there? Oh, the missus. It's pretty late over here. She's got work and stuff, so should probably keep it down.
After days of protests against China's
I find this
stringent
stuff way more
COVID
interesting
restrictions, the Chinese
than any,
government says reporting about the demonstrations is
like
inaccurate. This as
Unless
there are
I'm in
reports
the
of
sport, I'm
several
doing the
protesters
sport.
being detained in Shanghai.
Then I care, then I want to win.
Scores of demonstrators gathered in the capital Beijing and the financial hub
This is
Shanghai on
interesting as
Sunday,
hell, by the way.
holding blank pieces of paper
Alright,
to
yeah.
express discontent. Some even called for Chinese
The world's
President Xi
in a
Jinping to
spot.
step down. A deadly fire last week in Urumqi, the capital of the northwest China Xinjiang region, has become the catalyst for
You
the
probably run
current
away, hang on.
unrest. Many are blaming COVID lockdowns for hampering rescue efforts. The Chinese government has blamed what it calls forces with ulterior motives for linking a
Forces
deadly
with
fire
ulterior
in Xinjiang
motives.
to strict COVID
Yeah, they want
measures.
freedom. Yeah.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry says reports of protests in Beijing and Shanghai don't
He hasn't
reflect
got
the reality.
the bowl today, so. I wonder if you have the filter. Ready?
What you mentioned does not reflect what actually happened. China has been following the dynamic
You got
zero
some-
COVID policy and has been
You get
making
the
adjustments
Chinese people
based
free,
on the
yeah?
reality on the ground. And as we speak, China is following the 9th version of the pandemic protocols and 20 measures. We
Say
believe
what's
that
happened
with
to
the
the
leadership
Hexicans.
of the Communist Party of China and cooperation of the Chinese people, our fight against
Free
COVID-19
China!
will be successful.
Today, there is heavy security on the streets of Shanghai. China insists foreign journalists are welcome to come and report on activities in the country.
Crazy
China
world.
has always welcomed foreign journalists to conduct reporting activities in China in accordance with relevant laws and regulation, and has done a lot to facilitate their reporting and provide convenience for them. At the same time, while conducting reporting activities in China, foreign journalists need to consciously follow Chinese laws and regulations.
The anti-lockdown protests have also been reflected outside of China. A crowd gathered outside the Chinese embassy in London calling for an end to President Xi Jinping's restrictive zero COVID policy. And for more on
looks like
this,
a
we were
puppy,
earlier
eh?
joined by Jean-Pierre Cabestan from Hong Kong. He's an emeritus professor of political science at Hong Kong Baptist University.
These anti-COVID protests have morphed into a
think
much
it's
more
loop.
political movement, criticizing not only the leadership of the party, but also Xi Jinping himself, asking him to step down, also
I think
criticizing the
this-
one-party system, asking for more freedom and
There's not
democracy.
too much more, really.
Of course, that's maybe a call made by a minority of students.
Watch the rest of this
but
one.
and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You know, one of the things that we're hearing security officials are
I'm hoping people
doing
here,
in,
man, like that have
Shanghai
relatives and
particular
stuff in
right
China
now
are like
is the people that are turning up to the
supporting
main
freedom and stuff
protest
like that,
site on
because
Urumqi Road
what they're
are
doing
being
is just
told
insane.
to scrub their phones and scrub video that they take there. Authorities don't want these sorts of images to be getting out and getting onto social media and potentially inspiring other people to take to the streets to voice
Yeah,
their
you want to
opinions as well.
inspire empowered individuals for freedom. God, no.
retaliate.
Yeah, that's that. The Weon news,
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
that is exactly what
Reminds me of
we're
cable.
looking out for right now. You know, it's very hard to say. And
This
there
one was
are
only about
comparisons
a
being
couple
made
hours ago
to,
now, so it must be
1989
getting some global
Tiananmen protests.
coverage.
It's probably too early to make that comparison, but certainly anger has been building up for a really long time over the COVID curves, and people have snapped over what's happening.
I reckon the other guys are better. They had more
Urumqi.
like
It's
relevant
difficult to
data.
say where this protest
Not relevant. They
movement
had
goes,
more
but it is certainly gathering
personal
momentum,
experience,
and one would imagine that as
more
they
deep,
grow,
you know,
there
understanding
is
of what's actually going
potential
on.
that authorities,
These guys might too,
move
but
quickly,
they're
and
sort of like
enforce
reporting the headlines, you know.
crackdown to prevent it from spreading
These are
any
the
further.
same people.
Well, stay safe. Patrick Fock, thank you so much.
Peace. So even FTX. Australians warn not to invest in overseas exchanges. So yeah, some Hexicans were saying don't put. Anyway, not your keys, not your coins, you know. Yeah, I guess I will end it. I can't believe that China stuff, man. I leave the internet and this happens, maybe I should leave the internet more often, you know? Maybe I'll leave the internet and I'll come back and Pulse Chain will be dropping. Like, what the fuck? Nah. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on, but all I know is that, honestly, the freedom of speech and freedom of movement is becoming more and more important in this current timeline, this current existence that we're in. I bet you the people of China wish they could have done something to assist them with freedom of their speech and their freedom of movement. Alright, signing out. And yeah, hopefully I come back with another stream and we'll just cover some more crazy China news or bad news. Alright, peace all.